Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Welcome again to SoBigData Digital Coffee, a shot of big data into innovation, entrepreneurship, ethics, and impact. I am Giulio Ferrigno, Senior Assistant Professor of Innovation Management at Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna, and I'm very happy to introduce and moderate this webinar together with my wonderful colleague, Maria Giulia Garcia. Before we start, let me express my gratitude to SoBigData Research Infrastructure for giving us the possibility to organize this. More importantly, I want to thank you, all of you, for attending this event. We received almost 450 subscriptions to this webinar series. And this is a great achievement because it shows us how many people are interested into big data. Most of you are European, but a good portion of you come from United States and also from emerging economies. Moreover, the majority of you are working in companies interested to do research on big data or for educational purposes. And these are wonderful, this was possible thanks to the wonderful speakers we involved so far. Before we start, let me remind you the format one more time. In every webinar, we always try to involve 3 different speakers, companies, academics, data scientists, or even policymakers, who are, of course, experts about the topic we discuss. And we try to seek as much as possible gender balance, but also representativeness of both academic and industrial world. Each speaker has about 10 minutes to give a presentation. And at the end of the 3 presentations, we will have roughly 15-20 minutes for a Q&A session. Therefore, if you have any questions, please write them in the chat. Like in the previous episodes, at the end of this webinar, we will read these questions, and these questions will be answered by our speakers. This session is also recorded on the YouTube channel of SoBigData. Therefore, you can follow us also there. And in case you miss any part of the webinar, you can always watch the recorded video wherever you like. Moreover, at the end of the webinars, you will receive a digital copy of the SoBigData magazine for free. In the previous episodes, we focused on business transformation, innovation, and ethics of big data. Today, we focus on another important aspect, data impact. And to better understand this issue, we have involved 3 outstanding speakers today. We involved 2 companies and 1 academic. We involved Zelda Luconi from BIP Group, Riccardo Apreda from ErreQuadro, and also Mark Coté from KCL London. Thanks for being with us today. Let's go now with the first presentation. I am very happy to introduce to you the first outstanding speakers of today, Zelda Ailine Luconi. Zelda works at BIP Group. She's an xTech cloud architect who marries cutting-edge technology with a deep commitment to responsible innovation. With a start that beats for data ethics, she believes that the power of technology should be harnessed for the betterment of both business and society. And as a seasoned professional, she has worked mainly with the Google cloud provider, helping organizations migrate to the cloud securely and efficiently. She champions also the case of data ethics and data impact, ensuring that AI systems, big data analytics, and machine learning models are developed with sensitivity to societal impact. Zelda, thanks for being with us today. Today, we're talking about data impact. I have some curiosity about this. How can leveraging data impact drive business growth and innovation within a company's operations and strategy? Can you provide some, let's say, examples about how it's possible to use data architecture within products to enhance customer experience and increase market competitiveness? And also, and then I stop, promise. Could you elaborate on how integrating cloud technology into a company's infrastructure can allow to explore new business opportunities?
Sure, I am happy to be here, and Thank you for having me here, actually. I hope I'm gonna actually answer to all your questions with my slides. If not, of course, we have Q&A, so feel free to actually ask me anything later. So I wanna start by, I'm hoping this works, how to make an impact with big data. And to speak about this, we need to speak about how the trends we are currently having make data valuable. So I'll start with a small quotation, but probably taken for granted now, but it was by The Economist in 2017, so kind of some time ago. The world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. And this is very true. Maybe for most of them that we are here, this is just taken as granted, but it's not actually for, like in the past, it wasn't really so. Can you just give me a second? I have a problem with my screen. Okay. So what I want to speak about now is actually what is value. So we spoke about the fact that data are valuable, but what is value exactly? Value is actually the important worth of something for someone. So first of all, we need to speak about something, and something is what, and what of course is big data, which is extremely large data sets that can be analyzed computedly to reveal patterns and associations. And for someone, we mean probably businesses, which can range from global companies, single startup, or individuals with their laptops to understand what we can do with this big data. So taking this for granted, we need to speak about how. How can we actually take value? How can we make an impact in business, company, and society? And to answer the question, I actually want to speak about something else. Who understands, in general, the needs of clients and society? Who actually select the most appropriate tools to extract that value? And the answer is an architect. You can call it cloud architect, software architect, IT architect, whatever you want, but what basically does is the same as an architect in building construction. What it does, it takes raw materials, design architecture, and follow the works up to the point the new building is constructed. Even though in IT, we probably don't call it build, but pipelines or architecture. So this is exactly what I do at BIP, okay? Which is actually, I'm part of G team and xTech company. And what we do, we actually gather talents who works with data, AI, cloud networking, and emerging technologies. We actually are a consultancy firm. And just a side note, we have some opportunities for paid second level masters. If you want to join, just feel free to contact me. So back to our actually main focus, which are trends, okay? I'm gonna speak about three main trends that we are actually have to know, okay? As an architect, you probably have the most quality that you have is to be updated and curious with whatever is actually surrounding you. And our society is mainly this. You have to be actually up to date, be ready to understand. So I wanted to speak about, first of all, actually cloud computing. And I'm gonna take just a small definition from Wiki, okay? Cloud computing is basically the on-demand availability of computer systems resources, especially storage and computing power, without direct active management by the user. So now, actually, we should actually speak a little more about this active management and direct management, but let's just say that you don't have to take care of hardware and networking. You don't have to actually own it, which is basically like car sharing, okay? You actually use a product or a service, you don't own it, you just use it according to your necessities. And this is really pivotal if you think about it, because it reduces costs associated with, for example, new initiatives you want to undertake. So like you don't have to buy the hardware or manage the team to do it. In addition, cloud computing has freed, or at least partially, the creativity of business. The business do not longer have to actually adopt their own ideas to existing actually products. business products. They just have to understand how to use these Lego components, so cloud, let's say, resources can be computing components or storage components, to build up their own ideas and make them available on the market. Just to let you know, if you have already tried, you cannot really use any laptop to analyze big data. So actually, cloud computing is a very important trend that has been on the market for quite some time now. The second trend I want to speak about is Gen AI. You probably already know about it, and I guess all the audience at least known about ChatGPT, okay, which is maybe the most discussed topic in the last year or so. So what is Gen AI? It's a type of AI that can generate new content like text, images, and videos or other medias in response to prompts. And this is very important from different points of view, okay? Because first of all, Gen AI itself has been trained on big data. So it's part of the same trend. At the same time, Gen AI is used to actually analyze big data itself and get insight from it. So it's a very important trend you have to take in consideration whenever you are going to actually think about big data. Of course, it's also true that, as we will see later, it's probably finally cracked the mission that marketers have been taking for about 30 years, which is the idea of personalization. So every person has to have their own response. It's no longer segmentation of the market, but it's you have your own answer, your own, let's say, personalized assistant. And as the last trend I want to speak about actually is MarTech, which is the backbone of modern marketing, enabling personalized experience, efficient campaigns, and data-driven decision-making. To just give you a complete overview of these three components, I want to actually speak about some kind of like job-related things, which is building up an architecture. So this is a very, let's say, straightforward architecture, which actually have all these three components. We have the cloud computing, which is represented by this gray box here. Then we have all these other small boxes that are the resources, the Lego pieces we were speaking about. We have the machine learning algorithms that are on the left, so always inside the gray area. And then in the end, we actually have like the final goal, which is MarTech. Okay, so both on the left and on the right, you can see some Google Ads, Google Analytics, which are Google platform used exactly for marketing. So the idea is that we ingest data. So as we were saying, with oil, the real value is not the raw material itself, but is it transform actually a resource and product. So we take the raw data, so can be Google Analytics, but also we can have public cloud data, we can have APIs data or on-premise data. For example, you have your own database, CRM, and so on, and you can ingest this in the cloud provider. In this case, this is Google. What you can do then is actually analyze, you transform this data with different products, and you all sit in a data warehouse. In this case, we have Google BigQuery, which is a very well-known product from GCP. And lately, you can actually use machine learning in different flavors using different products. You can see here three mentioned, which is BigQuery machine learning, Vertex AI, and AutoML tables. After that, you actually inject these insights into either dashboards with Looker, another product from GCP, or you can put them again in Google SaaS platforms such as Google Ads and so on. So this is just to give you a small insight, which I thought is useful for you to understand how you can actually compare and actually get trends into the market, use them for your own business or just your own purpose for learning or for research. So actually, my presentation is ending here. Thank you for listening to this. If you have any question or you wanted to reach out, please don't hesitate to use either here, our question and answer, and LinkedIn.
What an incredible presentation, Zelda. Now let's move to the second speaker of today, still another company. I am happy to introduce to you all Riccardo Apreda. Riccardo Apreda is co-founder and R&D manager of ErreQuadro, a company specialized in the development of software for the automatic analysis of text and technical documents. In parallel to his research activity, he has coordinated about 100 business projects on intellectual property mapping and valorization, competitive intelligence, and also technology foresight, having as clients large companies, MSMEs, and national and international institutions. Riccardo, thanks again for being with us today. I have some questions for you. What is the impact of data on patents? Is it possible to use textual analysis through patents for social purposes to identify trends?
Well, the short answer is yes. I hope that the long answer will be contained in my slide. Of course, otherwise you can ask questions. So I hope you see my screen and the slides. Okay, perfect. So as has been already introduced, we are now analyzing textual big data, not numerical big data, and see if they can tell us something about the evolution of technology with a societal purpose or maybe just a business purpose, but both are equally possible using this type of analysis. So the first things that I would like to point out is that, we all know about numerical data, for example, in the Industry 4.0 perspective. So we know that we try to have a physical world which is represented using the new technologies in this paradigm of the digital twin in a virtual way, in a digital way, so that we can do the power of software analysis of artificial intelligence to extract information, to extract decisions. So I would like to start with the question, is there a digital twin of humans, of human knowledge, of their creativity? More precisely, where is the information about the design, the planning, the strategies that the humans produce? Even more precisely, is there a support, a physical or digital object where this is encoded? Well, of course, the answer is yes. Since the invention of writing, since the first clay tablet, people have written their knowledge on documents. The big difference now is that we can digitalize this knowledge, so create a digital twin. So in technical documents, we get all the knowledge, well, not all of it, but encoded the knowledge of humans about technologies. And the other important thing is now we have the tools like artificial intelligence, or even before that, the natural language processing tools to analyze it and to extract information and use it to produce more knowledge. So the answer to the previous is technical documents, and there's a load of different types, and they are really big data, although of textual natures, because if you consider, for example, job postings, there's a website that claims that they have 1 billion job postings about, of course, all types of jobs, but also technological jobs. Patents are 150 million and counting, scientific papers even more, and so on. And there are things that you can even never measure, like news and websites about technology. Who knows how many there are? Of course, it's impossible without the digitalization and the artificial, and in general, software analytics tool to process them. So that's why you have really big data. But they can be analyzed nowadays, and is one of the things that we do at ErreQuadro, to study technology, their impact in society, impact in business, and try to use them to produce new innovation, new business, or to discover ethical issues, or to create an impact. We'll see some example in the next slides. I would like, among all of these data sources, of course, the best use of them is to use them in combination. By cross-checking, integrating the information, you get a full picture about technologies. But for today, I would like to focus on one particular source of information, which is patents. We consider patents, well, not just we at ErreQuadro. In general, there is a wide consensus in the scientific community that patents are a really privileged data source about technology for various reasons, which are listed here. So they are a snapshot of the collective intelligence of humankind about technology. So you are familiar, I guess, with the idea of collective intelligence, right? But one important thing to mention is that 80% of the information about technology that is contained in patents cannot be found anywhere else. For various reasons, we don't have time to go into this. There are various studies that are cited here that have calculated, demonstrated, assessed this percentage. So it's a huge amount of information about technology that can be found only there. The second reason is that these information are closer to the company's real strategies than anything else, because they are an investment for companies. They are fighting to protect the things they really want to produce, put in production, to do business on it. So the information that you gather from them are really valuable because they are really close to what the companies are really going to do. Not, for example, this is not true always for research papers, scientific papers, because even if they come from companies and not from universities, which have, of course, a different focus, they are promotional papers. They don't tell what they're really going to produce necessarily. They can, but not always. Since of this dual use, let's say, of patents on the technical side, but also to protect the business, they hold a lot of information about market-related information or societal information as well that can be extracted. Another important thing is that this type of data anticipate what's happening in the market, so also in society, of many years, because you have to fight the protection before entering the market. And some information that you gather even more anticipate the consequences, as you will see in a few examples, of the introduction of technologies of even more years. And last but not least, from the data scientist point of view, they're very easy to manage because they are free, conversely to many other type of data, and very easy to access, and all contained in the same database. So the first example is about how we can leverage patent data to support the innovation process, to create more innovation for the companies, but also for society. Well, the basic thing is, of course, you can avoid reinventing the wheel. It has been calculated that one over every 4 research and development projects fails just because they have reinvented something that is already there. So that it cannot be, or just it's a wasted effort. But more importantly, it can help you find the next innovation. On the left, you see a simple analysis that can be done using big data patents. Let's say, analyze all the patents of a certain fields to see what are the key problems that have to be solved. This is sorry, it's in Italian, but it's an example about during the COVID, the facial masks, a lot of troubles that you want to solve to make them better, also for the people, or for the better protection from COVID. And all of them have been researched by companies, but not all of them have been solved. So it's a huge repository of problems, also social problems that need to be solved. And on the right, you see a concrete example of an innovation that's been generated using big data, an analysis of the patents is considered as a big data, in a very low technological, let's say, field, which is matrices, bed matrices. Few years ago, the standard for matrices were memory foam, but they were too weak to support the weight of the body. So by studying the problem, we could find that actually the supporting function need to be there. So we predicted and actually suggested to our client to start producing it before the others, the resurgence of springs, or metal springs, to support the body. And so he made a new innovation, was the first in his field, and then Permaflex, another big company, followed. And so he generated an innovation in a place that we knew there was a need for an innovation. The second direction, well, I tried to mimic the title of today's, so it's about how to support entrepreneurship. So, of course, I want to anticipate, or at least to understand, the threats that are coming from my competitors. So I want to study what they are doing. But also in a positive way, I want to find new application for my product or new clients. Or in general, I want to be aware of where the technology is going. This can be useful for companies, can be useful for society, can be useful for decision makers. On the left, you find an example of a competitive intelligence analysis on the patent data. You see how the companies, this is a fictitious names, of course, company ABB, seek protection in different countries. So if you see so all of a sudden, one company changes policy about protection in a country, it means that this company wants to expand in that country. So you can predict years in advance. And then the real case, this is, of course, it's obscured for non-disclosure agreements, could predict that the competitor was starting a business in Brazil, and there was no news on the websites or whatever. Only this could be deducted only from patents. The central example is about finding new application for your products. You have reached you have saturated your own market. You want to see if your solution, your technology is good for something else. And then you study the patents and you get hints on what other sectors can benefit from the solution you have, which on a business side can open new markets. On the societal side, you can find solutions from problems that maybe have not been solved before, for example, for, I don't know, in agriculture or energy or whatever. And finally, you can try to anticipate the technological trends. This is an example that is useful for the business world. We'll see in 2 slides an example that's useful for society as a whole or for institutions and policymakers. So this example about how the stevia, the plant that giving this sweetener, is changed in terms of possible application, while 20 years ago was all about sweeteners, so it was cocoa bean and so on. Now there's also an application in construction, in buildings, and this means in cement in particular. This means that the demand for this raw material is growing in a field that is different from the one where the food companies were buying it. So the price in the future, the price will rise up for those companies because there will be a shortage of this component. And this is a trend that I haven't tried to anticipate using data, big data. Ethics. Okay, it's not always possible to link patent and ethics, but in certain cases, and this is one example, it can be done. It can be very revealing. For example, this is a patent from 1998 about a way to protect the human brain from the radiation coming from the early stage cellular phones, filed by Nokia. So if you remember, if someone is old enough to have been there in 1998, you will remember that there was a debate about if this new cellular phone could have been dangerous. The radiation that they emit from the antenna could be dangerous. But the answer from all companies producing these cellular phones was, no, of course it's not dangerous. But in patents, they had to tell the truth. They were actually actively researching ways to avoid the damage. So they were aware that there was a potential damage. So their public claims were not true. They were saying that we have studies that there no harm, it's possible, but they knew it was not true. I mean, there could be some harm, and they were taking countermeasures that you could see from patents. So it's just one example of the ethical implication of studying patent, but there might be others, of course, but for shortage, I've selected this one. And finally, the patents can be used to assess the impact of produce and impact also, for example, on society. On the left, there's an example of, let's say the theory of analyzing patents tells you that there are ways of assessing the maturity or the obsolescence of a technology. And a few years ago, the Tuscan region in Italy wanted to invest in promising biomedical technologies. And we did this study to assess which one could be more promising also not just for the common, but also for the cure of certain diseases and so on. At that time, all the experts were praising this technology that is called IFU, that was about using ultrasound instead of X-rays to cure, for example, tumors. So ultrasound seems very, better than X-rays, right, from the collateral damage point of view. Actually, it turned out by studying in a big data way all the patterns related to that field, that actually this technology was already in an obsolescence state, and a lot of collateral damage that were not disclosed by the experts, but were described in the patent. So we advised against investing in this technology, and actually 6 years later, we could see that our prediction was actually correct. This technology is now dead, or almost, with respect to all the claims that he had in the past. On the right, you see a study that we are doing in various countries for various institutions, including the United Nations, which is how technologies, the evolution of technologies is affecting the labor market in terms of the need for new skills related to these new technologies, or for different professional figures related to the introduction of technologies. This histogram is by just trying to rank not the absolute number of all the engineers that you will need, but the relative need due to the introduction of new technologies. That is it. Of course, it could take hours, this topic, and I find it fascinating, but okay, it's my job. But thank you very much for allowing me to show some snippet of it. And if you want some more information, you can write me at that email address. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot, Riccardo. Thank you a lot. It's quite clear how passionate you have on this topic. Unfortunately, this is a digital shot of BigData, so we cannot talk on this topic for hours.
Of course.
But thanks for summarizing all of your knowledge in just a few minutes. Now, let's see the academic point of view. I'm happy to introduce to you the last outstanding speaker of this webinar series. We will conclude with the cherry on the cake, Marc Coté. Marc Coté is a reader in data and society in the Department of Digital Humanities at King's College London. He's a social technical researcher focusing on big data, mobile apps, algorithms, and machine learning. He's also a research-led academic with a pioneering cross-disciplinary vision that scans from both human and technical objects to understand the societal dimensions of data, computation, and AI. He has been a PI, so principal investigator, also co-principal investigator on many European projects, with the grants valued at more than 10 million of pounds. They include, of course, SoBigData Refrain, Safe AI Assistant, just to name a few. His work has also been published across many leading journals, ranging from Big Data and Society, AI Computer, and his innovative leadership in research-led teaching and curriculum development is seen in the MA Data Culture and Society. Marc, thanks a lot for being with us today. It's a very great honor. What is the relationship between human and technologies? How can values be repeated continuously, going beyond profit? And how can we recycle the reproduction of values and make a very big impact?
Thank you very much. Those are all excellent questions. I hope I'll be able to answer them. My approach might be somewhat orthogonal, which I think is typical for an academic approach. So if we could please change the slide. I'm going to focus your attention on the object on the left, which is a stone tool. So it was long assumed that stone tools only appeared with our genus Homo, right? Homo habilis, something called Oldowan tools, and they were found in Tanzania, modern Tanzania. They dated back to about 2.6 million years. But 10 years ago, there was a very startling discovery. On the side of an ancient lake in Kenya, there was a large array of stone tools that were found in situ, which in fact predate the Oldowan tools by about 700,000 years. These are called Lomequian tools, Lomequian 3 specifically, and they, in fact, also predate the known origins of Homo, our genus as Homo habilis, and they predate that by about 500,000 years. They believe it's a species called Kenyanthropus platypus. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, okay, first I want you to think about the evolutionary cognitive leap within stone tools. And stone tools are precisely made. And in order to be made, that gives evidence that there must be some knowledge of the fracture mechanics in the stone. And there needs to be what are sometimes called grammars of action, or just striking techniques that are required to create sharp edges. Now, these things, this knowledge has long been considered to be foundational to our evolutionary success, and indeed a core characteristic of being human. What Lomequi 3 tools show is that we've always already been technical beings, even in a much earlier hominin state. So for 700,000 plus years, we were using stone tools as we evolved into our genus Homo. And just as a reminder, for those of you who are not paleoanthropologists, our species only appeared 300,000 years ago. So I'm raising this as a starting point because I want us to recognize that any question of data impact and or of data ethics have to recognize this basic fact that we can't really separate our data from our condition of being human. So next slide, please. So we then want us to, sorry, it's one slide before, I think, data as tool. So I want you just to think briefly about data as tool, and what exactly do I mean by linking stone tools to data as tools? Well, this requires a particular way of thinking what a stone tool is vis-a-vis a human. So if we think about the worked surface of the stone, of the sharp edge, we can think about that as information. Now, this is collective and thus cultural information. This is information that is knowledge of how stone fractures and of the specific techniques that are required to shape this edge. So this was shared and learned amongst all of those early hominins. This knowledge, this information, in turn, gets sedimented into actual analog tools, things that could be held in the hand, and things that could be then used to fundamentally alter how we can live in our environment. Okay, so next slide, please. So datafication, I don't think I need to spend much time talking about that. It's this socio-technical process that defines our historical moment. It's about how our life and the life world in which we live gets captured as discrete data points, something that both of our speakers have already highlighted, and how that data is shared, processed, and transformed into actionable action and value. So the value and the insights in that data, in that information, remain discoverable, and they remain discoverable in an unrestricted manner. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So the first point then that I want to make about the social big data, that's the SoBigData of our research project, is that it is non-rivalrous. So if we think about tangible objects like natural resources, they tend to be rivalrous. So whether you're talking about fish or whether you're talking about, fossil fuels, their use by one prevents their use by another. So even if we think about the tangible object of the stone tool, the Lomequi 3 stone tool, it is rivalrous in and of itself. However, and this is crucial, and this is where we then move fully into the realm of data, the knowledge and the techniques of stone tool making, of lithic industry, are intangible. They are non-rivalrous, meaning they can be used by many at the same time without any decreasing of its value, certainly for that community. And because it can be shared and acted upon, what actually that does is that strengthens the overall capacities of that community in its environment. So this is why I stressed the informational dimension of the stone tool, because even though it is analog, the stone tool itself, you know, the human action upon that tool is non-rivalrous information. So in terms of maximizing impact, I would suggest that the non-rivalry is key. And if we want to think about that in terms of ethics, then it's about maximizing the capacity of a community. So data, specifically social data under datafication, is widely understood to be non-rivalrous. There's a lot of research by OECD, the EC Joint Research Center, US Bureau of Economic Research, among many others, clearly pointing to this fact, right? So not only that data can be used by many at the same time, but in fact that the more people that are using the same data, the more benefit that can be derived. Okay, so can we please go to the next slide? So the next point that I want to make is that, and it's a simple and straightforward one, is that data is generative, right? So in this crucial manner, our data, the data that we generate, is generative. It's the generative value of the information on the work surfaces of those stone tools was available to all in those early hominid communities, which they widely made stone tools. The value of the data generated by us, by our lives and the life world in which we live, is in practice, in fact, accessible to a decreasing number of increasingly powerful companies. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So here I just want to make a point that I think is straightforward and doesn't really apply to the SMEs that are participating today, and that's around how datafication is in fact monetization for a decreasing number. And what I would suggest is that for us to realize a more inclusive, societally enriching data impact, we need something that goes beyond the personal data for service model that dominates currently. Because platforms and large tech corporations, from Apple to Alphabet to Meta to OpenAI to Microsoft, just to name a few, they're all seeking to increasingly impose exclusivity, both infrastructurally and through IP law and regulation. And they do this while relying on non-rivalrous use. And just think of any given app as an example. The user, the app, and third parties are all using the data that is generated, but very large tech is doing so. As this is happening, we've done research specifically on SDKs that I won't go into, but it shows how they are actually increasing their market concentration and in turn deriving exclusive financial benefit. Okay, let's go to the last slide, last few slides, and I'll wrap up. So for data altruism, I just want to end by introducing this new paradigm, and with this notion that in fact another data paradigm is in fact possible. So if we can just go to the final slide and I'll wrap up so there's time for questions. So the European Digital Governance Act that was implemented last September, it gives statutory footing to the concept of data altruism. And we have many colleagues at Sant'Anna, in fact, Giovanni Comande and Denise Armand, who are actually doing research on this. And in fact, we are hoping, if we get successful funding, that we'll actually be drafting a data altruism infrastructure within SoBigData and looking at the kind of the regulatory and technical dimensions. And this is an opportunity for developing user-centered data services and social AI in which users more willingly consent to the use of their data in a much more transparent environment. And there's a lot of work that we're going to do, and in the name of time, and so people have questions, questions, I'll wrap up and just say, hopefully we'll be able to continue to report on this important new development, which we think can help to increase the capacities of community and the social good that can come from the data that we generate. So thank you very much.
What an amazing presentation. Thank you, Mark. Now, let's move to the Q&A session. Let's now scroll the chat and let's read some questions. So, the first question from Valentina Cuscino is the following. What are the main challenges in obtaining and managing impactful data? Can you provide some example about the impact of big data on society? Or the economy? Who's gonna answer for this?
I can answer to it.
Thank
If you agree, of course, if someone else wants to join, feel free. So I think we had many actually, we had a big impact on healthcare, okay? We have many apps now that actually are trying to answer to certain actually pathologies and things like that, so disease. Actually, machine learning is also used to, for example, in diagnostics, to understand if, for example, there are cancers or not, is very common actual usage of image recognition. For actually some impact that is not related to, let's say, business, but just society in particular, I think big data has pushed a lot on jobs. So we have many jobs. We have are still having actually a great growth in jobs positions. We have also many specialization that are actually coming out from this this phenomena. Other thing I think is also an impact is on smart cities. Maybe not in most of the Italian cities you have this kind of impact, but it's true that, for example, also the fact that you can see when the bus is coming is actually part of the big data phenomena. So if you think about it, it's just there is a sensor on the bus, and there is an architecture that ingests the data and understand where the bus is and send this actually data back to the let's say to the card or to the panel you see at the bus station. So I think you can have like big data impact almost everywhere in nowadays, even if you don't notice or you don't know.
Super. Let's now move to the second question for Riccardo. How can textual analysis of big data respect cultural sensitivities and diversity?
Well, I think we have to distinguish between the analysis that extract information from data and a possible analysis that manipulates that information. Because extracting the information doesn't add anything, it just reveals what's hidden in the data. So it's a neutral operation. So either the data contains something which is unrespectful, actually the big data analysis helps to discover it. So it's a way to control the content in a way that is not possible because of the sheer volume of data that you would have to, to check. So in that sense, it does not help the analysis itself, but help discover possible disrespectful things. Different thing is, so for example, all the graphs that I've shown you in this in my presentation do not add anything. They just reveal what the data tells you. For example, we have discovered that there's something about, hidden knowledge that companies do not disclose. Manipulating is a different story. That implies that you want to add something to what the data tells you. In this case, I guess the only answer is that there has to be checks or way to control what the process of processing data in a way that avoid disrespectful content to be generated, for example, by generative. This is actually what the companies are trying to do, not because they are intrinsically good, but because the control of society it's already started. Well, the feedback from society already started. So this is, of course, it's a very tricky path, but it concerns only when you add something to the data. Big data analysis per se actually in some way helps to find if there's something wrong. Otherwise, the data are just there and they do not do any harm.
Thanks for insightful answer. Now we have questions to Mark. How can organizations ensure that the benefits of big data analytics are equitably distributed among different segments of population, particularly marginalized or vulnerable groups?
Okay, great. In terms of organization, I mean, Riccardo and Zelda have touched already on a couple of points. What I would also suggest is that this is really a matter that ultimately requires different kinds of regulation, simply because we need to. It's precisely because if we go all the way back to Zelda's first slide around data as being the new oil, that is precisely around the value that is inherent in data that doesn't necessarily lead an organization to seek to discriminate or demonstrate bias against a known group, but that often happens as an unintended consequence. And I think that unless companies and SMEs are guided or required to, and in fact, there is a lot of existing law that allows for remedy in that regard. But there's also a question of the level of kind of public trust, and lots of segments of the population have lots of good reason to not have a lot of faith or trust in data, and somehow imagine that there's a possibility to disconnect themselves from, their digital shadow, or however you want to look at it, which is one of the reasons why I started off by talking about the Stone tool, to sort of suggest the core or constitutive relationship between the data that we generate and ourselves as humans. And in that way, to think about how data rights are, in fact, fundamentally human rights and not something that is sort of secondary, right? So, I mean, it's not easy to quickly give a complete answer, but I think those are some starting points at least.
Thanks. There is also another question for you. Social big data are perceived as excludable or non-excludable? And could we perceive them as club or public goods?
Okay, I'm not fully clear on that question, but what I will answer is that many organizations have already identified data as public goods, right? And that's something that, in a sense, should be inalienable to all of us in the everyday generation of that data. We are so locked into the data for service model, partially because it does things for us. Most of us use digital tools and are quite happy with the way that it extends our ability to act, but that leaves us a little bit blind to the actual deeper value that is inherent in all the data that we generate for across our everyday lives. So I think that it's important. That's one thing that we can do, certainly as academics, we can do in forums like this, is to really push this idea of data as a public good, and definitely not exclusive to a particular owner.
Super. And then we have the last question. Then we conclude by Giuseppe Simone. Do you think that data analysis by artificial intelligence requires a final human control in a sector such as health?
I will answer by saying yes. I think it's very important. It's true that what in general is done is that you have a final control, like a human control, on a specific task set. Okay, it's not you have all the answers that are screened by someone, by a human person, but rather you have a sample of data that are analyzed, and based on that, you actually get you have certain scores. Okay, I'm not going very technically speaking into details, but basically you have certain scores, and based also on the field you are applying, you decide if the algorithm works or not, which is, of course, is kind of dangerous. That's true. There is always in statistics, let's say, there is no zero possibility over anything. So it's possible there is an error, but yes, we still have need for human control on certain sectors such as health. At least personally speaking. If someone wants to say something different, please speak up, because this is my point.
No, I think it's the same. I feel I mean, I have the same answer for this for this question. So I do completely agree.
Giulio, can I just give a really quick example?
Yes, just a few seconds, because we are almost out of time.
Okay, all I was going to say is that if we expand access and use of technology to communities, we can point to a group that we're also hoping to do some research with, and that's type 1 diabetics. And those are people whose pancreas no longer can produce insulin. So they've taken their wearable technology, they've actually hacked that themselves within their community, and they have linked it to pumps, which automatically give insulin doses, and they've generated a system which clinical studies has shown to be safer and more effective than commercial models. Now, I'm not saying that can scale across to any kind of health application or any kind of field, but I think it's really provocative in telling us something that happens when people in communities have much wider and fundamental access to their data and technology.
Yes, great point, Mark. And thanks you all for being with us, Zelda, Riccardo, Mark. We learned a lot today about data impact, and let me also thank SoBigData Research Infrastructure for letting me organize this webinar series. It was a very nice experience to touch with our hands how many people were interested in the good things that SoBigData Research Infrastructure does. However, the organization of this webinar series couldn't be possible without the help of Maria Giulia Garcea, who has devoted a lot of time, commitment, and efforts to make everything, really everything possible. Thanks, Maria Giulia, for welcoming this challenge with great enthusiasm and devotion. Unfortunately, we have to close this session right now, but let me remind you that a recorded version of it will be out soon at the SoBigData YouTube channel. So if you go there on the SoBigData YouTube channel and possibly make a like, you can always watch the video again, plus also the recorded video of the previous episodes. Moreover, as promised several times, a digital copy is there to be arrived. So a digital copy of the SoBigData magazine will be finally shared together with all of you by mail very soon, for sure by the end of the week. And let me also remind you that there is a new initiative of the SoBigData Research Infrastructure, the so-called Challenge Us 2024. With a closing date set on the 15th on May. We will also share more details about this initiative with all of you. This is a great opportunity for companies for dealing with data issues for free by counting on the help of our wonderful researchers. And the last but not least, we might organize a new cycle of webinars after the summer break, given the great, let's say, number of people attending these events. We have, of course, some ideas on our mind, but we would like to know from you what you think about them. So we want to, because we want to organize something that is important for our stakeholders. Therefore, we will be in touch with you by asking to fill just a very short questionnaire that will ask you only 20, probably 30 seconds of your time. Okay? So that's all for now. Long life big data, long life AI, long life a better world together. Have a lovely rest of the day.